Welcome to another broadcast of The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. All past shows are available in podcast form. You can find them at ArtistFirst.com. We welcome your questions, email comments to dj@artistfirst.com. Here they are, your co-hosts, Michael and Margaret Lyons.
Thank you very much, Z-Man. And it is Michael
and Margaret
Lyons. And thank you for listening. We're done tonight. No, we are not done. But that could be a fast from the show, from the Soul of the Everyman show. Maybe people need a fast from our show.
Oh boy.
Oh boy. and fasting is something that's pretty hot these days, right?
Well, yeah, as a form of weight loss.
It's a form of weight loss. But tonight's topic is a form of fasting. You ran into this quote, and I really am not familiar with this gentleman. Maybe you are. His name is Naval Ravikant, let's say, and it sounds Nepalese or Indian or something.
Naval.
But what can you tell us about Naval? Which I'm going to say Naval because it's not naval. It could be naval. You never know. Like as in navel gazing, which would be awesome because he's a gentleman obviously who does a lot of meditation. I looked him up a little bit, but the quote was very interesting in any case. So maybe would you like to read the quote? Or you would like me to muddle my way through it the way I would?
I will read the quote.
We will spare the audience you muddling.
Okay. Meditation is intermittent fasting for the mind. Too much sugar leads to a heavy body, and too many distractions lead to a heavy mind. Time spent undistracted and alone in self-examination, journaling, meditation, resolves the unresolved and takes us from mentally fat to fit.
What I like most about this, because I read through this quote also, was that as too much sugar leads to a heavy body, too many distractions lead to a heavy mind, and so distractions, the everyday, day after day, moment by moment stuff that people shove in your face, is a sugar high for the mind, and I would say actually a sugar high for that part of the mind we call the ego. Because the ego loves to, eat the sugar high of ideas and things and doings and lists and all that stuff.
No, it's a sugar rush. You basically just consume it, and suddenly you're talking a million miles a minute.
Could we say a dopamine hit too?
Well, yeah, energy. You get a rush because the mind is completely engaged in what it wants to do. It doesn't even necessarily have to enjoy it, but this is what it wants to do.
That's a good point, because I think that's true of sugar in the body too. Is the body craves sugar? Of course, the body uses sugar, but the body craves sugar, and it becomes addictive. Or it can become addictive, and it also becomes sort of it's almost doing it. When you have a bad eating habit, one of the bad eating habits is eating because as a distraction, or as people eat when they're under stress, or they eat for there's all these different reasons that they eat, but really they're just eating for almost something to do, like a.
Well, it's a habit that you develop because you're trying to self-soothe yourself. And self-soothing, you immediately think of the little one that sucks its thumb to quiet down the stress level. Some people eat believing that'll reduce the stress.
Well, what you said before, I think, falls in there, because when they're eating like that, I don't think they actually taste it or really even enjoy it. I think it becomes almost as all these distractions become almost a background hum for the ego, and it's just something it's doing, to keep itself busy. The sugar eating or the sugar high becomes like the constant thing. It becomes, you're always just consume, 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 without even enjoying it.
Well, I think it's interesting because the mind itself, if you observe the way your mind is working, it likes to continually think about stuff, or it needs to be focused on something. Like some people, their bodies have got to be active, otherwise they don't feel good. They have to be constantly doing something.
Right.
But there is a difference between conscious doing and unconscious doing.
There you are, exactly.
Just as you're looking at this going, there is a state of unconscious thinking, which at first seems like it should be an
like an oxymoron, right?
Unconscious thinking. But that is what your habit form is. Just like unconscious eating, you would think that you would be conscious when you eat.
I think, but the unconscious eating is what you said this to me, and you have to taste your food. You're just unconsciously eating. You're literally just chewing and swallowing and ingesting, almost as a matter of, I want to say habit, but it's more like, it's almost like rote. It becomes like just shoveling in the food and not even enjoying it. Like if you're going to prepare and enjoy a meal, or have somebody prepare a meal for you and then sit down and enjoy it, you have a certain pleasure, even of anticipation of that meal. And then you enjoy the meal, and then you have even the afterwards, you're thinking, well, that was such a wonderful meal. And so you have this whole experience.
Right.
And if you prepare the meal, it can even be a greater experience. You have the experience of planning it. And so you have this whole thing, this whole series of events. And, whether that's your thing or not, that's an experience in which you're conscious all the way through. You're conscious of the freshness of the ingredients, of the process of cooking it, of the smells that are coming up, of the look of the food, of placing it in front of yourself, of giving, maybe you give thanks for it, and then you eat it slowly, like, oh, this is really good, and you talk with someone you love, and you have a conversation, and you have a few drinks, and it becomes a whole experience, a conscious body-mind experience.
Right, you're
but
living.
That's not the road eating. That's completely different.
Yeah, it's living experience. Being present in an experience means you are living it. If you are unconsciously eating, it probably would be easier if they just mixed all the nutrients in a shake and you just drank the whole thing and that's it. You're done. Yeah, it's just gassing up like a car.
Gassing up. There you go. The bloated mind. Well, the bloated body. So this idea of intermittent fasting is in essence to make you conscious of your next meal. Let's say, what is intermittent fasting? If we talk about it for 3 seconds, it's basically stopping eating. People are like stopping eating. What are you, crazy? But in fact, the science of it is quite sound. The body, our bodies, all of our bodies, evolved in over hundreds of thousands of years, many generations, evolved in a feast and famine type of situation. You'd have food abundance for perhaps a short period of time, and then food scarcity. And so our bodies were meant to cycle between those two extremes, if you will. You have to have certain things constantly. You have to have water. You have to have air. But if you have nutrients that come in, you would seek them out. You would find them. You would consume them. Perhaps even consume a lot more than you would normally eat in one meal. But then you would have a scarcity period, maybe several days, where you wouldn't have anything. You'd be hunting again. Okay. Because of that, our bodies evolved to deal with it. In the modern day, with this unconscious eating, or even with all just regular eating, we never go into the scarcity. We think, well, that's great, you're always in abundance, but your body can't deal with that. It gets jaded. It gets to the point where it doesn't know what to do with all the extra nutrients that's coming in constantly, so it starts to pile them on, as Navi says, or Naval says rather, into a heavy body. And you even become unconscious of the pleasure of eating because it's just always there, always there. So in the mind, we have this parallel where the constant, let's say, drone of social media, or the constant drone of Madison Avenue, or just the constant drone of your own internal mind, all the stimulus, the phones, the TVs, every other thing that comes into you, the YouTubes, whatever, those things become now not something pleasurable and that you would experience and then go on to something else. No, it's this constant zzz, bing, bing, ding, ding, wung, wing. Everything is demanding your attention. And I think one of our episodes sometime back with Dr. Bum, he was saying that every one of those little dings, bings, blings, and whatever is all a dopamine hit. So you get this constant dopamine drumbeat within the mind. And as he said, and as people know, dopamine is the chemical which leads to sort of a chemical addiction within the mind. The mind treats dopamine as its pleasure center. It hits the pleasure center and hits the brain. Sorry, the actual physical brain, not the
brain. Yeah.
I said the mind. I meant the brain. Its dopamine is its pleasure center, so it gets this dopamine hit. Gets it from food too, so that's where the two are linked. This stimulus of the ego and the stimulus of food to the body are both hitting the brain. Dopamine from both sides.
Right. And I find it fascinating that people like to brag about the fact that, well, I can multitask. I can do this and this and this and this and this all simultaneously. And if you equate it to every little thing, every little noise, every piece of information coming in is a dopamine hit, you're basically saying, well, yeah, I need all that to stay high.
Yeah. Yes. You are literally, in some ways, the brain chemicals that you're releasing, dopamine and serotonin and all those things, are keeping you, sort of high in a way.
And it's stress. That's the other thing is you need to have this stress level in order to get your dopamine hit. That would be my question, because in meditation there are ways to train the brain so that you're releasing the stress, but you are having very high levels of what is that?
Serotonin comes up.
Serotonin.
Yeah.
You're highly aware and very much at peace and happy. And you can do that without having the stress and then getting a hormonal hit.
Dopamine hits. Yeah.
Well, the adrenaline also goes up high.
Yeah. Yes.
So it's understanding what your body's actually doing and telling you, because the other aspect of it is that the brain function doesn't know the difference between an actual physical situation that it's reacting to or some mode on the screen that it's watching and reacting to. It will release all of those reaction chemicals,
cortisols and stress hormones and all that.
Yeah, regardless of whether or not you're actually in a physical danger situation or not. And actually managing that, anticipation of stress in life, those life skills aren't taught, which you're sitting there going, we all know life is stressful. We all know life is stressful, and you get attacked from every side. But who's teaching you how to manage that, how to really be calm with that, and manage not only your body responses, but your emotional responses and your mind responses.
Yeah. I mean, in some ways, what we're talking about here, the meditation can be one of the tools you use to manage both the body and the mind. And the Buddhists would say there's no difference. The mind and the body, are a unit. They're a being, and that the mind, in essence, the body will follow the mind, and then the mind will follow the body. They say the mind follows the breath, and they also say that the mind can quiet and manage the stress of the body. So they're very much intertwined in their meditative philosophies. And I know that a lot of them will practice asceticism of the body to, in essence, help train the mind, and the other way around.
Well, it's putting consciousness first. Depending on the mind or the body is considered foolishness. Okay, what you're doing is you're raising your consciousnness so that even though the mind's telling you one thing and it's saying I can control the body, or the body's telling you, well, I can control the mind. It's like it's two kids in a slap fight.
True. But I've heard them say that, in essence, the mind will follow. If you want to put your mind into a meditative state, they often use breath exercises. So the mind follows the breath. I'm not saying that you depend on one or the other.
Well, consciousness is what you are focused on.
Right.
And so what movement that you are doing with the breath is allowing you to experience the rhythm of everything that is going on around you, and how natural that is, and how you are actually a part of everything around you. But you're not thinking of it. You're giving the mind the task of focusing on the breath. And that's what I was trying to say before. The mind itself is made for preparation of tasks or doing a task. Okay? You must give it a task if you want to understand how that part of you works. It needs a task to do. When you're stilling the mind, you're allowing it to ride on the breath. It's focusing on the breath, and then it becomes subsumed so that it actually quiets. And it begins to merge with the consciousness at that point. It is the ultimate in self-soothing, because you're riding the breath and it takes in all the nuances at that point. The best exercise I've seen is to tell the mind to record what is going on. And you give it that command, you begin to train your mind into a wondrous form of recall. Your memory will be absolutely amazing at that point, because when it records what's going on, it takes in not just what's said or what it hears, but the sounds, the smells, the texture, the temperature, quality of light around it. It takes in all the other information through all five senses, not just listening. So the body and the mind are tools, and you've got to allow them to be the tool for your consciousness.
Absolutely. But starting where a lot of people start, they start with the distractions of the body, the sugar, the eating, the unconscious, as you said, the unconscious, in essence, slavery to the body, and then this unconscious slavery to the mind or the ego, which is what Naval is talking about here. So, looking at from the other side, if you are in a state where you're experiencing so many distractions. And in essence, what does he mean by this, by a heavy mind? Well, people will say, well, I don't have a fat mind.
Yes, you do.
But you do. Well, you know,
Yes,
what you have
do.
is a mind which is it is in squirrel mode. You know, it is constantly in a state of ultimate distraction. It is. You said it before. This idea of multitasking. It's something which people have said, well, look, I can do all these things at once, and as though it was a good thing. And it is certainly to train one's mind to keep in mind many complicated things is one of the things that a well-disciplined mind can be trained to do.
Yeah.
And it can be very effective. But the intermittent fasting is to realize that is giving the mind its ultimate in satisfaction. Oh, mind, you did all these things well, all at once. Everything was kept in place. All the boxes were checked, and the mind's like, just, yeah, it's me. I'm the best thing ever. You know, and the mind just loves that. It loves to tell itself how good it is, and over again. And then you basically have to sit back and you say, okay, as the consciousness, as that which is being, we have to now say, well, mind, now it's time for you to go to your quiet place. We need to rest. We need to pull back. Because if we stay where you are, you're going to get an inordinate sense of importance. And in essence, you're going to push away all the things that we need to be. The being part of us will be neglected. The being part of us will be pushed into the background, and the mind will try to be supreme. Of course, it cannot be, but it will run as hard as it can trying to be.
It would be helpful if you could actually take stock of what is going on in your life and see whether or not indulging in thought constantly is actually a good thing for you. Are you thinking about things that just stress you out? Your body is just like falling apart now because the stress hormones have been through the roof, and you actually are beginning to develop physical ailments because the mind is keeping your body into a constant high stress mode. Can you see that? And can you see that you need to take steps away from that? Because you will get responses from people that say, well, gee, that's how I do things. Well, that's just how I am.
That's just how I am. Can I stop you there? I love that because we have things that tell us when we're overweight, or you can feel that I just don't feel right. I don't feel right. And I'm feeling flabby, or I'm feeling out of shape, or I'm feeling my clothes don't fit, or my scale is broken because I keep stepping on it. That's the stuff that tells us right away that the body is maybe being overindulged. But there's the mind being overindulged. I think you're right. People will defend it to the death. No, that's just who I am. I have to have this. And that's the ego defending against the thought that it might be overweight.
Right.
It might be a fat mind, a fat ego.
Yes, that was my question. How fat is your ego?
How fat is your ego?
And I think there's a book there.
How oh, ego, my ego. How fat is your ego? There is a book there. I'm gonna have to think about that. But in truth, we don't have these things, or maybe we do, but we don't don't lend them credence. There's a certain theme, let's say, in the Madison Avenue section of our world, which says you can't be too thin and you can't be too whatever, too rich or too thin, and the idea that having a body which shows not, it doesn't show this heaviness, is somehow desirable. So people will start a program with like, well, I've got to get in shape, I got to lose weight, blah, blah, blah. And they might pick intermittent fasting or many of the other things that they do. But is there, I think there isn't really a reliable way of saying to somebody, hey, you can say it to someone, but it's not something that you may come onto on your own. You say, well, I'm really thinking too much. My mind is too fat.
I'm serious when I say
Yeah,
that.
I am too. I think it's a big lack in our current society.
In our current society, you are encouraged to supersize your thoughts.
Supersize me. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Because it's like, well, how much can you think about?
Yes.
And how much can you think about in one sitting? And they go into, like, as I said before, oh, I can multitask this and this and this and this and this, and I'm organizing all this, and you sit there and you go, well, do you realize how you feel after a day like that?
Right.
Are you aware of the fact that you are exhausting your physical body? Your adrenals are dead.
And you're maybe exhausting yourself and everyone around you.
Yes, I'd say everyone around you probably won't let you know. They'll just be running. You'll just see their backsides because at that point, you are going to need energy from other people.
Ah, there you go. Energy vampiring.
Well, because you basically want to indulge, again, in your mind or your ego. Because I know how to do this. You don't know how to do this. You have to do this for me. I'm telling you that this is the right way to do things.
Yeah.
And you sit there and you go, okay, I'm going to do that, and I'm sidling over here because you are a metal case.
You are a metal case. I love that. There's always nothing like having a Bugs Bunny moment. Well, but there is. I will say this, and maybe we'll bring it into the next half hour. But I'll say this: there are sort of these ideas, though, that you feel jaded, or you feel like you are overstressed, and so you have these forest bathing, and you have this, I'll go on a retreat, and I think these are healthy things, but I think people don't know when and perhaps, at what point to apply them. I think they think that they'll go like crazy for 50 weeks out of 52, and then they'll take 2 weeks to do a forest bath, and I'll be fine. And that's like gluttony for 50 weeks of the year, and then taking a 2-week diet, and then right back to gluttony. And
right.
Maybe for the 2 weeks you lose 10 pounds, but then boom, right back to it. And that's not. It's got to be more regular than that. You know what? Before we go, let's take a fast from the soul of the Everyman. We're going to go back to the studio. Please pay no attention to the commercials, and we'll come back on the other side. We'll talk more about fasting, intermittent fasting.
The wait is over. First Blood, Book 2 of the Blood series is out. Your favorite bad boy thief Dev is back, and the beautiful and deadly Trey is right there with him. She is sharp, sexy, and full of surprises. Their adventures continue as a new power arises to threaten the world. The heart of creation is under attack, and time is definitely not on their side as they battle against their enemies' undead hordes. Can they unlock the hidden power that can defeat him, or will his forces draw first blood? Get all 3 installments in the series. Book 0, It's in the Blood. Book 1, Destroyer's Blood, and the new release, Book 2, First Blood, today. Available in ebook and paperback format on Amazon, Kobo, Apple, and most other fine e-tailers.
Rick Riordan fans, love mythology with plenty of action and humor? Destroyer's Blood is for you. The new fantasy novel by award-winning author Michael Lynes is book 1 of the adventures of Devkalion, the Blood series. Follow Dev and his magic sword Betrayer as they are suddenly attacked and forced to return to Olympus to fight in a war they want no part in. The world of men and gods is about to be destroyed by Zeus's ancient foe, and only Dev and Trey can stop him. The conflict never stops, and the amazing twist will have you on the edge of your seat. Act now while the ebook is on sale for only 99 cents. Destroyer's Blood is available on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere. And while you're there, get the free prequel, It's in the Blood, available for a limited time.
Hi, this is Hannah Ruth from the band Wild Hum. Check out our new Americana Soul CD, Wild Hum, at our website, wildhummusic.com. And you are listening to the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Thank you.
The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed is the latest book from Michael Lynes, the award-winning author of There is a Reaper. Featuring 13 original stories, this wide-ranging collection has everything. Forbidden love, gods versus demigods, weird invading aliens, sexy seductive artificial intelligence, and unusual passion between the living and the dead. All set amidst fantastic worlds of pain and loss and boundless joy. From the sublime to the macabre to the bittersweet, The Fat Man Gets Out of Bed will leave you breathless with laughter, brimming with tears, trembling with suspense. Available now on Amazon.com, Google Play, iTunes, Kobo, and fine e-tailers everywhere.
There is a Reaper is the story of 5-year-old Christopher Aaron and his life-changing struggle with leukemia. Winner of both the Indie Bragg Medallion as well as the reader's favorite silver medal for memoir, There is a Reaper has more than 100 Amazon book reviews and a 5-star rating. It has been described as life-changing, spiritual, a must-read. Just released on Audible and iTunes, this memoir is also available in paperback and on Amazon Kindle for only 99 cents. Get your copy of this life-changing memoir today.
Listening to The Soul of the Everyman on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. Back to your hosts, Michael and Margaret Lynes.
Thank you very much, Z-Man. And tonight we're talking about fasting. This is a terrible, terrible topic. But tonight we're actually talking about, we spent the first half hour really talking a little bit about the fact that both the body and the mind in modern society are being encouraged to a certain form of gluttony. And gluttony is an interesting word. I think it's sort of gone out of fashion, but it is one of the 7 deadly sins, people, in case you were wondering. And it really means that you are doing whatever it is to excess. A glutton for punishment is somebody who is able to feels that they can take a lot of abuse. But a glutton in general is someone who indulges. You said it before, someone who indulges. So the idea of indulging in food to the point of not even tasting it, where food just becomes a sort of a habit, leads one to say, well, I'm too fat, I gotta go on a diet. The idea of being a glutton for distraction, a glutton for mental sort of machinations and all the things that the mind loves to do, the ego loves to do, I don't know if we have a empirical way to measure that, but I think it comes to each of us in a way, sort of an exhaustion. Exhaustion, we talked about it last half hour. Exhaustion, or the fact that you're exhausting everybody around you. You're becoming an endless pit of do, and there's no be there.
No, I agree with that. You're an endless pit of doo-doo.
An endless pit of doo-doo, people. Yeah, that's a lovely image. Go ahead, go on.
Oh, all right. Well, the idea that it's perfectly all right to overindulge the mind, whereas most, as you said before, you're taught not to overindulge the body. You're not supposed to overeat or too much of anything will make you sick.
Yes.
You remember that one. Too much of anything, and it could be a good thing, will make you sick. And understanding it's that balance point that is absolutely needed. But most people do not think of overindulgence in terms of thinking.
Or distraction.
Or, yes, distraction. You do get the phrase, work hard, play hard.
And workaholic.
Right, but it's like there's no rest in that.
That's true. Work hard, play hard. There is a certain. I will say that a challenging physical thing can be a rest from the mental, because the focus of the physical can take you away from the endless distraction of the mental. But the two are not necessarily resting states. They're just different doing states. So let's just say a triangle is much more balanced than a seesaw. And a seesaw is play hard, work hard. What you need is play hard, perhaps, work hard, perhaps, rest hard. Rest is an extremely important thing that people just don't do. And it's not saying, well, I'm resting because I had 3 hours of sleep. That's rest. No. You need to fast from the distractions. You need to push back and just be a consciousness, and a consciousness that isn't eating, perhaps, or eating only, enjoying a meal, and then staying, in that state of enjoyment rather than the gluttony of the body. Enjoying perhaps one thought, if you want to just take a thought, take a simple, just a thing, and just look at that one thing. And if you can't not think, at least only think of one thing, an experience. And it pulls you back from this endless ding, bing, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me.
Well, if you go with the rhythms, the natural rhythms of the body, you need 8 hours sleep.
That's true.
Okay, so you can do your 8 hours, work hard, 8 hours, play hard, but 8 hours deep sleep.
That helps, sure.
To try to come to a balance point. But it's, again, as you said, to know when you are overindulging your ego. Nothing in this society tells you that you're overindulging your ego. If anything, they're trying to buoy up the ego as high as it possibly can go.
Right.
Money is used, glamour is used. The media, Lord knows, it's all about an ego.
And social media. The constant me, look at me. That's all mental. Right.
So I think the idea of realizing that, you are in an unhealthy state right now because all you are is an ego. Your body is taking punishment for it. Your emotions are probably completely through the roof, because if you do not allow yourself to allow for the emotions to flow through you, it means that there's a backup, and when they do rise, it becomes a torrent. It's overindulging in the emotion. You instead of being angry, you'll get rage.
Right.
And there is a healthy balance to this. We were meant for that. But the ego itself doesn't allow for the learning on how to manage your emotions or the balance, listening. I mean, honestly, how many people actually listen to what their body's telling them? I always wondered about that. Because the body doesn't necessarily voice things.
Right.
You have to be able to be in touch with it to know that this is what's off with you right now.
Right.
And maybe that's the reason that it's not listened to, because the mind wants to hear what's right with you. It doesn't want to hear what's off with you.
Well, and I think you said this last half hour, but it bears repeating, is that the mind will push back. If you say to somebody, these are the things these are the distractions, these are the things that you're constantly running through your mind, and it's just not good for you, it's not healthy for you. They'll say, that's just who I am. Because the ego literally is who I am. It wants to be everything. It wants to be the big I. It wants to be the I that says I. And so when you hear that phrase, and usually said with some heat, with some anger, it's the ego pushing back against any limitations on the ego. The body perhaps will push back because if you are overindulging and doing it unconsciously, you will see physical effects. Maybe you'll feel run down. Maybe you'll start gaining weight. Maybe you'll start having physical issues. Maybe you'll start having actual diseases, that are caused by stress.
Or mental diseases.
Well, yes, but the body's telltales can be seen by you, and they can be seen by others. You're looking pale, you're looking tired, you're looking fat, whatever it is. But the mental telltales are more difficult because you have to say you're being overbearing, you're being pedantic, you're being constantly consumed. You're running 1,000,000 miles a minute, and you're giving nobody any space to breathe. When you start to hear people say things like that, or you start to think them yourself, those are the mental flags or the warning signs that the ego is starting to consume you. Because the ego is a voracious beast. It really wants to eat everything in that regard. It wants to take all of your time, all of your energy, all the air out of the room, all the air out of everybody else's room.
Right. No, when it runs out of itself, it needs others to bolster it up.
Mm-hmm.
What are they called? The enablers. Mm-hmm. Then isn't that what social media is?
Exactly.
It's a bunch of enablers, and it has its positives. Okay, when someone actually needs to lift their spirits a bit, but if it's used only to satisfy the ego, to assuage the ego, to stroking.
Yeah. Yes, the Greek chorus.
The Greek chorus,
yes. Yes. Oh, you're so wonderful. Oh, you're so wonderful.
But that should be a red flag for people. It's like, wait a minute. I need this to get over myself.
Right.
Because you basically had hit a point where you're not getting any satisfaction. There's no more energy left in your tank. And you need to fill up from other people.
Right.
And this is where that assumption that it's perfectly all right to do that to others, to subsume other people because you're needy.
Right.
That's okay?
That's a red flag right there.
Well,
it should be.
It should be, but it's to understand that that has been given the okay in everything around you. All the societies around you, they have some form of this. It's okay for somebody else's life to be subsumed by me because I am that important.
And there's the key. The ego loves to be important. And the more self-important you are, the more important you think you are, which is an ego construct right there, is a red flag.
So when you look at that, you realize, okay, when people hit the point where they're saying, you know, what was my life about?
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know who I am. You've been overindulging in that ego balloon. And we've said this previously. The ego is a giant balloon. It's all it is surface with a lot of air inside.
Go
ahead. So understanding that the steps need to be taken to get past that, there's got to be a part of you that yearns to see who you really are, because you're more than your ego. You are more than what you think. And when I say that, I mean you are more than what you think you are.
Yes.
This idea of creating a face so that other people can see, and this is, you know, aren't I wonderful? But you're more than that. That's just the surface again. Do you really want to do that? Or are you so afraid of the emptiness that you find inside the ego that you believe that the only thing you can do is make your balloon bigger?
Well, let's jump off on that because we're coming, you know, we don't have a ton of time. So what Naval says here is time, which is a very key thing here. Time spent undistracted and alone. And I think you just hit upon it. People think if they think of being undistracted and alone, there's a certain fear component to that. That's the ego saying, what will I do?
Right.
And the ego doesn't like realizing that it has boundaries, that there is that which is beyond it. It really is plankton in the plankton mobile because it thinks the body is its plankton mobile and it is in charge. But outside of it, if you put yourself into this time spent alone and undistracted in self-examination, he says journaling, but I would almost say that would be in itself a distraction. But self-examination, literally contemplating almost nothing, almost just within oneself, meditation, a meditative state of... Go ahead, sorry.
No, contemplation, most people have the wrong definition of what contemplation actually is.
Yeah.
Okay, contemplation, people think that you're supposed to think about stuff.
Yes.
Seriously.
Yeah.
You know, I'm in a contemplative state. Thinking. It's like, no. Contemplation has to do with consciousness.
Yes.
And finding your objective viewpoint. In other words, observation. You're observing what has unfolded in the journey of your life, what events have happened, and observing how certain things may have fit together. You may get inspiration at that point, saying, you know, it actually was a good thing that happened, that I happened to be there, or this happened to me because I wouldn't know how to handle this other situation later on. So being contemplative means that you're opening up your being state, your spirit, you're into something that goes outside of the bounds of your life.
Well, can I stop you there? Because I think you've hit it exactly. You can only observe your life when you step outside. When you can't, if you're on the inside trying to observe, you're really just kind of stirring it up. From the outside, there isn't the emotion, the judgment, the thinking. it's observing. You're saying, this is, and that's it. It is. And you can say it was good from the point of view of, like you said, now I can understand it better. But you're observing from a contemplation is from a point outside of ego.
Right. This is, and as I said before, people think that a contemplative mind means that you're thinking about really high thoughts.
Thinking really hard. Really, really hard. This is extra special thinking. No.
But seriously, that is where most people's understanding of the phrase contemplative mind falls into.
Well, yeah. I mean, the meditation we were talking about before, in essence, looks at those thoughts which rise up as, and I think the image that they use is to let them rise up like a drop of water or whatever, and just roll off. It was something about rolling off the edge. You probably have it better in your thought. You remember it better than I do.
Yes, the meditation is that you're sitting at a table with a white tablecloth in front of you. And the table is fairly long, but you just observe the white tablecloth, and suddenly a marble drops on top of it, and you just observe it as it rolls down the table until it gets to the end and it falls. And you're not reacting to it, you're just taking in the fact that it's round, it may be glass, but it's rolling, and then it reaches the end and it drops. And you do not engage in that marble. That marble is a representation. If you grab the marble, you are grabbing onto a memory. In other words,
or a thought, right?
Or a thought. And the minute you grab it, you actually enter into the marble, and you roll across the white field, going up and down, up and down, up and down until you drop. It's understanding that is the nature of thought. But if you do not engage in the thought and you just observe it as it rolls, it's like, where are you in your observation mode? Are you focused on the marble and you enter into it and you are being flung all over the place as it rolls on its natural progression to the end of the table? Or are you just observing it as it's rolling? And the events are all unfolding or unrolling in front of you until it ends.
And it's lovely because people think of, when they say you're losing your marbles.
True.
They're saying you're basically, what are the marbles? They're trying to say, well, if you have all these thoughts, so you're multitasking, you have a whole bag of marbles you're trying to be in at the same time. Well, that's chaos. But that's what it is if you live in the constant distractions. It's chaos. And yes, to the extent that you can manage your marbles, fine. But the observer sits outside, first of all, tries to clear the field. The field is the field of the mind, the white tablecloth. The consciousness is above it all, looking down upon the mind, upon the body, upon the whole thing. Those thoughts that drop in, those marbles, are unbidden. They just come. They're like, man, I should pay that bill. And you sit there back there and it goes dunk, and it sits there and goes, just rolls away, and it's gone. And that idea of distraction was to engage you, was to take you from your consciousness point, pull you into the marble, into the maelstrom, roll you around, and then drop you back into the unconscious valley of thought,
right,
where you're going to be rolling around with all the other marbles.
Well, this is where all your stressors come.
Yes.
If you actually do the meditation, you realize that the minute I engage in that thought, I will be experiencing all the push and pull that happens in my life when I think about that bill.
Yeah. And that one goes, the marbles start banging against each other, and there's a chain reaction. All of a sudden, you have a whole giant bag full of rolling marbles that you're in. That's the distraction. That's the heavy mind. It's full of balls, giant balls. But they are, and they become as distracting as a bag of marbles would be. But I'll tell you what we've done in this long talk about the fact that meditation is the cure for the heavy mind, is we have exhausted our hour, as we always do.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm Michael Lyon.
And I'm Margaret, and thank you for listening.